Hello and welcome to another round of MTGA Tasting Notes. In this episode, iteration, whatever you want to call it, we're featuring something that I've never actually done before, and that is a Coombsville Cabernet Sauvignon. Something that came to us in 2023 due to some kind of weird extenuating circumstances that I would love to share with you, actually. For those of you that are in our wine club and watch the videos surrounding our wine club release for the winter of 2026, well, I gave you a little kind of teaser that something interesting happened in 2023 where we ended up with this Coombsville fruit. And you know, it's something that we don't talk a lot about in this industry because we kind of tend to focus on a lot of the romance of winemaking and the flavors, the characteristics, the meals, and kind of this pomp and circumstance behind it. But as many of you might imagine, it is a business. There are, you know, a lot of gears working in the background and things that have to get done from an administrative standpoint to go from grape to bottle. And to give you a little insight into some of that, particularly when it comes to grower relationships, because as many of you know, we don't own our own vineyards. You know, we try to contract with other small family farms to, you know, buy grapes from them and make wine from the produce that they're providing, basically. That's how we operate. So we've been working for some of our growers for our entire existence. And certainly through 2023, we have been buying Cabernet Sauvignon specifically from one source. And it was something that we were very proud to be doing. And not to get too much into the drama, but you know, it had gotten a little shaky as the years had gone on, both in 2022 and then again this year, and then 2024 as well, unfortunately, but that's a different story for a different day. In 2023, we had contracted, and how our kind of contracts work. I know this is the super fun stuff about the wine industry. We are contracted for a certain amount of tonnage. So we were looking for 6 tons of Cabernet Sauvignon from this grower to make, you know, roughly 12 barrels of Cabernet. That's kind of what we were looking at. Those are ballpark kind of figures for you there. I dropped off all of our picking bins, made sure they got started in the right section of the vineyard. Everything was looking good. Their vineyard foreman and I were on the same page, and I headed out to the winery to start getting things set up. This is talking about like the wee hours of the morning as all this is happening. The fruit gets delivered to the winery, and there's half as much as I was expecting. So I talked to him. He's like, "Oh yeah, we only have this much out in the vineyard." And I go, "Really? It looked like there was going to be enough. I was told there was going to be enough." And I'm like, "Well, we could only do this much." And I was like, "Okay, well, that kind of puts me in a bind because if it's off by a little bit, half a ton here or there, maybe even a full ton. All right, sure, fair enough. Like yields were low this year, fair enough. But it was kind of a bumper crop year. And on average, a lot of growers saw more fruit rather than less in their vineyards in 2023. So I'm like, this isn't passing the smell test." So I call them, we sort out kind of what's going on. They say, "Yeah, we just don't have anything else available for you. Like, we're sorry." And at that point, I'm kind of like, well, I need the fruit. We have people that want the wine 2-3 years from now. We're going to need to produce the amount of Cabernet that we need to produce to kind of keep it going. And so I went into panic mode. And very luckily, you know, it's such a small town, you can kind of put up the distress flag and say like, "Hey, who has fruit available?" And we found this vineyard in Coombsville. As I mentioned, it was kind of a bumper crop year. They had a lot of fruit out there. There's a lot that they were just going to let rot. They weren't going to pick it. I said, well, if it's still in a pretty good condition, and there's a good chance that it was going to be because it was this long, cool growing season, like it really played in the hands of you can kind of wait and pick almost whenever you want realistically. So and they were getting ready to pick the rest of the vineyard for themselves. And I said, you know, if it's in good condition still, if the fruit tastes good, and I can try some of the wine that's come off the property before, then let's go ahead and try it and we'll see what's up. Go down there, meet with the man who's actually leasing the vineyard, doing the farming. Actually knew the family who does the farming and kind of all the work for them as well, because you know their son I went to high school with, so there were a lot of kind of nice little mutual connections there. And I said, you know, this actually could work. I've never made Coombsville Cabernet before, but I like the way it tastes. I like the way the fruit looks. You know, the chemistry on it looks good. You know, like it's not in disrepair, or you know, given how late we're in the season, I think we could really have some fun with this. So we were able to plug that hole in the ship and said, all right, we needed an additional 3 tons of Cabernet. We found it. We found 3 tons of Coombsville Cabernet to make. It was, man, I was so stressed trying to sort all that out because it's like early in the morning, the middle of the night, you're trying to figure things out. You don't really know which way is up. You don't really have a solution for it just yet, but within 48 hours, we figured it out. And we found an amazing fruit source to help kind of bolster our Cabernet production for 2023. So this Coombsville Cabernet ended up going into a few things. A little bit ended up in our red blend. Actually, most of it did end up in our Diversum red wine. It was a great lot for that. And then we, of course, did this one-off bottling of it. Just one barrel to really highlight the single variety 100% Cabernet Sauvignon from Coombsville off of Hagen Road. It just, again, kind of fell into our lap, and sometimes better lucky than good with a lot of kind of mutual connections. Really like what Coombsville has to offer as a growing area. You know, it's so funny to me that it really wasn't that long ago that people thought you couldn't grow amazing Cabernet in Coombsville because it was too cool. And you're like, I'm sorry, like this is what great wines come from cool areas. Like that is no reason to believe that great Cabernet can't come from this particular region. It's been interesting for me as a winemaker to make this wine because I've had to kind of shift my mindset. I've worked so long with St. Helena Cabernet that I'm like, okay, I kind of have my, standard operating procedures, so to speak. I kind of know how to go from grape to bottle and make some really good shit. Coombsville, I'm like, man, I'm gonna have to kind of toy with this a little bit and see what it needs and play with it to a certain extent. So immediately I kind of go into mad scientist mode. We try a few different barrels, some new, some used. We try some different, fermentation and aging techniques with, yeast selection, things of that nature. Like I just kind of threw everything out the wall because I'm like, this will be great to just have in the back of my head from this region if I ever work with Coombsville fruit again, to be like, all right, let's see if, we want to do this again and what we want to do with it. Because now I kind of have marching orders just for this appellation, which is really, really fun. This is a wine that I always describe Coombsville kind of in this way. It is a region that is almost a combination of 3 other regions. Man, and every time I swirl it, it changes. Like it's so perfumey, it's so pretty. It's just kind of like just sitting here. I don't even want to drink it yet. It's just sitting here, and every time I swirl it, it's just like, oh, it's just getting better. And a little bit different, a little deeper, and a little richer, and more complex. This is the wine you can just sit here and like smell. Like I wish I could bottle this as like a perfume or a cologne. Like that's how good this smells. It's outrageous. I'd bathe in that if I could. I completely forgot what I was talking about. Oh, Coombsville as an appellation. For me, it's very much a combination of a few things because it has this great acidity, this great kind of structure that you expect from a cooler climate. Think of like your Carneros or Mount Veeder Cabernets, where they're just a cooler climate, a little bit rough around the edges sometimes, but there's this great backbone to them that really actually gives the wine a lot of life. That in Coombsville tends to be balanced out by the fruit characteristics. There's this depth to the fruit that very much reminds me of Oakville Cabernet, and maybe a little poppy, like up towards like St. Helena can have this really bright fruit characteristic, but it doesn't go that far in either of those directions. But it's kind of this nice amalgamation of these 3 other regions that have been, established for a little bit longer. Granted, grapes have been grown in Coombsville for some time, but again, Cabernet Sauvignon was not expected to do well there until more recently. On the nose, it just continues to be super perfumey. The barrel that we use for this comes from Alain Fouquet, one of my favorite cooperages to use. A lot of family history there. My grandfather used to use barrels from Alain back in the day. In fact, when I bought my first barrel from them, I dropped an email out into like their info at Alain Fouquet, thing or email address. So it just goes into a generic mailbox, and not like a half hour later, I get a call from Alain himself asking if I was my grandfather's grandson, and we kind of catch up and talk about what we're working on and all that stuff. And I've been buying the barrels ever since. So this wine just kind of continues to be like all these great mutual connections and random things kind of coming together that have just worked. And it's kind of one of those moments as a winemaker where I'm like, just keep it simple, stupid. Like don't overcomplicate it. Let the wine do its thing. It tastes good. It smells good. Just let it do its thing. And that's what's been really, really fun about getting this wine from grape to bottle. So yeah, the nose is very perfumey. There's this beautiful kind of vanilla baking spice kind of thing going on from that barrel that I was mentioning, that like a touch of chocolate, like brown sugar in there. Man, you could just sit and swirl it forever. And you kind of like the fruit notes of kind of these darker blackberry, like fresh fig, maybe like a little bit of plum in there, like a ripe, not too ripe plum, but there's still this like nice refreshing quality to it, especially from a cooler vintage. Man. And what, like Coombsville for me, it's such like, you take a sip of it and it's just like, I'm trying to remember his name. Is it Phil Spector, Richard Spector, whoever, like the musician, producer? I know he's kind of like maybe a little bit of a controversial figure, but he had this concept of sound when it came to music, of like this wall of sound. And it's just, you feel it, you experience it. And that's what Coombsville Cab has always been for me. It's just kind of this wall of experiencing this wine. Because it hits your palate and you're like, oh, like there's a lot going on here. It's not overwhelming, but there's a lot going on here. And I really do think it is kind of these nice, beautiful rolling hills, the warm weather that it does experience, but this cool climate from the bay that gets sucked into this little section of the valley. Man, there's just some amazing stuff that goes on with Coombsville. And I'm very lucky that we tripped and fell into making this wine and that we could bottle a little bit up on its own and just be like, all right, cool, let's see how it plays. This is certainly going to be one of those Cabernets that I'd probably argue is going to be a little bit better with food in its youth. It's great to just open and go for it. It's fine. You don't necessarily have to do a lot of decanting with it. That said, you notice it when you swirl it around. It kind of changes and shifts and ebbs and flows. So a little decanting wouldn't hurt. But man, this thing is going to have some longevity to it. There is a lot of life in this wine. And all of our reds tend to go that 15, 20 plus year range. But this in particular is like, okay, this is set up for the long haul. By no means do you have to wait that long. But if you keep a little bit in your cellar to see how it evolves over many years, I mean, it's going to do just fine. This has been just an absolute joy to work with. I'm so excited for it, given just the madness that went into making this wine and kind of the lemonade that we made out of lemons, so to speak, when it came to some of our grower relations that year. Hope you all have a chance to try this and give it a shot. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel here. Check out some of our other tasting notes, our harvest updates. We try to post on a pretty frequent basis here on our YouTube channel, also on Instagram, the Book of Face, and the social network formerly known as Twitter, just at MTGA Wines. Be sure to check all those out for a little bit more of what we have going on here in the day-to-day, in the cellar, events that we have going around the country, all that good stuff. Have an excellent rest of your day, week, afternoon, night, whatever the case may be, and we'll see you here next time for another round of MTGA Tasting Notes. Cheers.